Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to another week here on the Patterson Report. As always, I'm Brandon. That's Ryan. And I wish we were coming to you under better circumstances. And last week, we really thought we were going to be. God, I wish I had time today to clip that audio because we did end very positively when we kind of said, look, we're going to come back next week. This is all going to seem like an overreaction, yada, yada, yada. Boy, were we wrong. I mean, everything has gotten worse than I think you and I could have possibly imagined it could have. Since we were here last week, the team fell on a 4-game skid. We are now second in the East. Granted, the Mets are playing really good ball. I think the Phillies still have a top 5 overall record. But still, second in the East. From when we last spoke, we were tied for tops in the MLB. We were worried about bats and bullpen arms. And now we're worried about starting pitching, which, in the way back times of 2 weeks ago would have seemed like the hottest take in Philadelphia sports. Today, it's very real. Even Jesus can't save us now. Jesus Luzardo, last 2 games, has given up 20 earned runs in 5 innings of work, marking the worst 2 starts in the history of Phillies baseball. Nobody has ever pitched 5 worse innings than Jesus Luzardo just pitched. And, one game is an anomaly. You could say Rob kept him out there too long. Today, we were hoping to see a bounce back, and it was more of the same. Now, you have a theory on why this is.
Yeah, it's been making the rounds today that he's kind of tipping his pitches, which, judging by his deliveries, I don't know if we could bring it up or something, but...
Have I ever had clip capability before, Ryan, on the fly?
I know. I was asking for a lot. I probably should have said something myself, earlier today, but I didn't have time. But you could just see by the form that the glove and everything is just angled differently on his separate types of pitches, and I don't like that. I mean, certainly that'll get fixed, but if he's tipping, that's just we saw what kind of damage that could do. We've seen it in his last 2 starts. We saw it in the World Series against the Astros because Lance McCullers was definitely tipping his pitches because you saw the guys talking in the dugout, and what happened with that game. That game was over before it started. So,
yeah, and it's it's one of the few things that makes sense because there's 3 things you can typically think of. He's hiding an injury similar to what Nola may or may not have been. I still think that might have been phantom IL, but that's neither here nor there. It could be dead arm, which I don't think is the case because, he hasn't really been healthy and he hasn't pitched a ton of innings. And if you're watching the games, not listening to him, you can see on the score bug that he's still consistently sitting 96, 98. So I don't think it's dead arm. So that kind of only leaves something mechanical or, maybe there's been enough tape on him this year that people are starting to see that he has a tell, like you were saying. But, the benefit of it being him tipping pitches is that it's probably quicker to address than the other 2 options. But you got to really hope that that's what it is. You would think that they probably didn't do anything after his last start because it seemed like an anomaly. After this one, the next 5 days are going to be spent with Caleb Coffin figuring out what the hell's going on. If he comes back out for his next start and gets shelled again, then you're going to really start to wonder how quick of a fix this could be.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, 1 start is an anomaly, 2 starts. Okay, now we have a problem. But
yeah,
if teams got the film and now they starting to realize it, and fans are starting to realize, there's a difference when he throws different types of pitches, I think that could really be what's going on here. And it shouldn't be that hard to fix it, but when you're a guy that's doing the same movements, 100 times a game, it's kind of hard to get locked in, or kind of hard to get out of those ways because you just do it so often. Your body's just used to it.
Yeah, and one of the things, I kind of went back to some of the off-season videos, and there's been one that's kind of resurfaced this week was, Luzardo talking about how effective his sweeper's been this year, one of the best in baseball. Not a pitch that he'd ever thrown before coming to the Phillies. So you do wonder a little bit if it's your first year with a grip, your first year with a pitch, Is that something where it's not second nature and you are subconsciously doing something to get into that pitch? So I would love to see the sweeper effectiveness over the last 2 weeks compared to the rest of the season. See if, guys have figured out if he does something a little bit extra going to that pitch, because it is his first time ever throwing it.
Mm-hmm. And there is that, grace period. And like before you have tape on the guys, you see it in football with the quarterbacks. It's hard to stop them when you don't have tape on an opponent. Same goes for pitching because, like you said, you get locked in those ways. So I just hope that it's a little fluke and it gets fixed in the next start, because if he comes out in the next start and allows, however many runs, 5, 6, 7, we have a problem then.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a major problem.
And that kind of brings us to, well, I can split this how I want to do this actually, but we'll go this way. We had tweeted something from the account after Abel's start, so yesterday, and I never thought that this was going to happen. So I still counted Luzardo as a stud who had a bad start. And at one point you're looking at this Phillies rotation, you're like, okay, we have a problem, but it's a good problem. We're 7 deep, and at best you can go to a 6-man rotation. In the playoffs, you're probably throwing 3 to 4, depending. So there's always going to be an odd man out, and you were never quite sure who that was going to be. Prevailing wisdom would be Ranger, because he's an expiring asset, and you're not going to re-sign him next year. Flip side of that is, in today's world, do you still have that luxury to get rid of Ranger? Because in a world where you have Wheels, Nola, Sanchez, and Luzardo, yeah, whatever. We keep Ranger, don't keep Ranger, what have you. When you start talking about that 4th pitcher in a playoff series, when you start getting into 7, being a first-year guy, that changes how you look at that a little bit, and how expendable does Ranger become. And not even take into account the fact that Andrew Painter is supposed to be a stud. He's supposed to come up and kind of take over. Mick Abel is not ceding any ground. He's had 2 starts and he's pitched phenomenally in both. So he's going to make it tough for the Phillies to go, look, we got to give this guy with no big league time a shot over Mick Abel, who's come in and thrown 2 great games. So there's a starting pitching conundrum here.
Yeah, I don't know how this team's going to figure it out. I think someone's going to get shipped off. That's the most likely, scenario outcome out of this. I don't know who it's going to be at this point. Last week we were dead set. Okay, it's going to be Ranger, but now with Luzardo's problems and, maybe you could ship out Mick Abel for a greater asset now, it becomes a real problem that Dombrowski doesn't want to make the wrong choice, because I feel like this is one of those.
It's franchise altering.
This is a franchise altering move where if you make the wrong call and keep the wrong guy, you're cooked, and this window feels like it's almost over.
Yeah. I mean, look, everybody is so certain, and I hope that he is. This is not me thinking I know better than the scouts would ever. I hope Andrew Painter is as good as they say he is. I hope he's the best prospect to come through our farm system since Aaron Nola. Like, I really do want all those things to be true. What I'm watching with my eyes is a guy in Mick Abel who was I believe he was undrafted. He also could have been a late round draft. If we get a fact check on that. I believe he was undrafted, fly through the minors, have a horrible year last year, reinvent himself in the offseason, come back, have a great year this year, come up for 2 games in the majors, and pitch lights out. So I'm not putting anything past him as far as what his ceiling is. So it comes down to between
those. First-rounder, Mick Abel was.
Really?
Okay. Check. I remember that. Yeah, he was a first-rounder back in 2020.
Okay. I was mistaken.
He was one of those top guys. I remember it now.
Okay, maybe I don't know. Maybe
he was so poorly super high year on the prospect leaderboards going into, I believe, 2022, 2023. He was top 50 prospect both years. And then the downswing happened, but he's still that elite arm, and he's shown it at the major league level. So
well, that's the thing. So let's say you and I just talked last week about, sometimes the premier guy doesn't always work out. Oh, I found the tweet I was referencing. I missed the words pitched like in undrafted free agent. That was my mistake. Anywho,
Okay.
let's say you ship Abel off and he goes to Tampa or Baltimore, whoever's collecting prospects, the typical suspects, and turns out to be a star, and you keep Painter, who doesn't quite pan out. Like when we say franchise, that changes the look of your starting rotation for years to come.
Yeah, and I don't think he'd be in a Orioles deal unless we get Felix Batista.
Yeah.
But the Red Sox, they're shopping Jaron Duran. We got to keep an eye on that. They're on kind of the downswing. But if you keep Painter or Abel and the other one goes off, like you said, it's just Dave's going to catch a lot of flack from the fan base, from just fans of the sport in general. It's not going to be the prettiest,
No, and here's the other fun thought experiment that I was having with somebody today. It feels like it's a foregone conclusion that, Rangers gone at the deadline because conventional roster building would tell you he should be. He's an expiring asset. You're not going to be able to pay him. He's a Scott Boras client, and you never want to let a guy go for absolutely nothing. The flip side of that argument, though, is, you and I keep talking about this team's window and how small it is. There's no question this year Ranger makes his Phillies team better. He can spots. He's a great starter. He's been in a long relief role. He's been in a high pressure relief role. He's closed games for you. Having in the playoffs, he's a stud. Like, I'm not treating him like I would any other, expiring contract. He has value to this Phillies team in the fall. And if this team is all about winning championships ASAP, there's no question it's easier to win a title with a Swiss Army knife like Suarez on the roster. So that haul has got to warrant somebody like Ranger. It can't just be for a Carlos Estevez level rental.
Yeah, I understand that. It's so tough because the window feels like it kind of feels in my eyes that this is like the last year of the window, this and next. I feel like once this year closes and, if they disappoint a little bit, I think the window could slam shut, certainly. We haven't paid Schwarber yet. Zach Wheeler's not getting any younger. Aaron Nola, if he wasn't hurt, showed some serious regression. He might have been hurt because that fastball velo was definitely down.
Yeah, hope to God he was hurt.
If Luzardo keeps up this struggle, it's how long does this team have? Because you have to compete with teams like the Padres, the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Braves, of course.
And the Cubs are ascending. Like their window's starting to open.
Or they're in the middle of their window. The Dodgers window is going to be open forever. Don't get me wrong, but those teams like the Padres with their bullpen that's incredible, and Tatis and Machado. Then you have the Mets who just paid all that money for Juan Soto. I don't know what's going to happen with this Phillies roster. Like I just said, we haven't paid Kyle Schwarber yet. Obviously, wants to remain here because the bond between his teammates, the franchise. He likes it in Philadelphia, so I think that gets done. But every day I get more and more nervous that
it hasn't.
Hey man,
why not yet?
He could leave to one of these ascending teams that has barrels upon barrels of money.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like that's kind of why I'm bringing up the piece about Ranger is you can look at it through two different lenses. Like I see your point where you're saying, you push your chips into the middle this year, you move Ranger, and you get as much as you can to try to win a title. I think the side of the fence that I'm on is the bird in the hand worth two in the bush. I know what Ranger's going to do in the postseason. So whatever I trade him for has to exceed the value of what I've seen Ranger do. It can't just be two, low floor, high ceiling bullpen arms who could flame out. We've been down that road. Dave Dombrowski's a pretty good GM, but since he's been a Philly, he's had his lunch money taken at the deadline. Which, look, nobody's great at everything. Like, he drafted.
Mr. Howie Roseman got to slip that one in there. I mean, he makes mistakes too, but I have to slip that one. I know you're on track, but
he's not Howie. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't know if I trust his evaluation of these rental bullpen arms over what I've visibly seen Ranger do.
I totally agree. It's just so tough to make him do that. Yeah, I'm looking for Ranger on the whip list of all time. I can't find him for the postseason. He's high. I can't find him. Zach Wheeler's number 1, by the way. I think we were over this last week.
At one point, Suarez was top 5 in ERA in postseason history. I don't know if he got knocked around last year or not. I didn't think he did.
I don't quite remember, but yeah, I mean, you need to have someone who provides you equal or greater value than Suarez does, because
not the potential to be.
Not the potential. No, he needs to be a stud. Like I understand that. I don't think he's going to fetch that kind of return. So I think the obvious, choice is to let him play it out and hope his market isn't crazy inflated. I got to look into that. I haven't done, free agent market work for this offseason yet because it's so far away. We'll get to that later part of the seasons, but
he'll get paid. And I see what you're saying. It's tough to ask him to do it. And I think once you do ask him to move to the pen, you pretty much know he's not going to come back.
Yeah. He has the lowest career ERA by an active starting pitcher in the postseason with at least 25 innings.
Dude, if it's about winning right this second, how do you let that out of the building?
Zach Wheeler's second with 2.23. Unbelievable. This team should already have a World Series. I think we both know this. But this team should already have won. They should have beat the Diamondbacks. I'm not going to a postseason game this year, by the way. I can't do it.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell out. They got to get to the CS before I'm going to mortgage.
I went to the DS last year. They lost. I went to the CS the year before that. They lost. I think I'm. Yeah, maybe you should stay away. I think I got to stay on the couch for the greater good of the squad.
Yeah, I think you should stay away. But
I'm gonna make it to another regular season game or two, because if they lose, oh well. I had my hot dog. It's not $1 dog night. It's not the same. But I went. I saw. But. I think I'm done on the postseason.
I'm with you. Unless I get to the stadium, I'm going to sell out for it. But, we've spent an appropriate amount of time, but 18 minutes on the pitching woes of this team.
Spend 18 more if we wanted to.
We could easily, but that would be doing a disservice to the other holes on the team. Where I think peripherally we touched on the bullpen, but we can dive deeper than that if we need to. But it seems like every year this team is a bat short, and it's been an outfield bat for the last 3 seasons. Center field is going to be what it's going to be. I don't think there's a solution there necessarily. Marsh and Rojas have both kind of underwhelmed this year, but there's not an impact center fielder out there in the market this time around. But I don't know. I think Kepler's been good, not great. I don't think he's earned the right to be the everyday left fielder. I don't think it's insulting to platoon him at this point, but they got to get an outfield bat with a little bit more pop because there's a giant hole when it's Kepler, Marsh / Rojas up. It's becoming guaranteed outs.
That's why I said we got to monitor Duran in Boston, because they're talking about floating him around in trade rumors. There's been the big one on Phillies Twitter past, I don't know if it's a week or day, moving Trey to center field and getting Sosa on the field every day at short. I don't know what you think of that.
I wouldn't be. Here's the thing. I wouldn't be against it. Trey did play some center field in Washington, correct?
Yes, and it was it was a play that someone tweeted out. I'm sorry, I don't remember it, but he got a really good jump on the ball, and the person tweeted it out, said, average center fielders don't get this kind of jump with it. He has the elite speed.
Yeah.
I think
neither Marsh or Rojas has really been the defensive. Both those guys came over here as, Rojas in the minors and Marsh in LA was, he can't hit, but he's a strong defensive piece. Marsh's defense has slipped almost every year, and Rojas he struggles sometimes with the routine, but he makes the unbelievable. So, look, I don't think you can downgrade the fielding in center field. Trey Turner would probably be as good, if not marginally worse, than the two guys we currently have. I'm all for getting Sosa on the field. He's another guy we're going to lose at some point, but when he's on the field, good things happen. I'd love to see him start every day at short. He's got to be a better fielder than Trey is over there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So I don't know if you saw this. I got to scroll back down because the article went all the way to the top, but Bleacher Report did trade packages for Jarren Duran.
I've seen this. It's lunacy.
I was about to say, you hang up the phone before you end the proposal, right? Before you read the end of it, you hang it up. For those that don't know, it is the Phillies get Jarren Duran. I'm not knocking him as a player. He's a really good left-handed bat, and he'll play a decent field. But the return is Eduardo Tate, who's the Phillies' number 4 prospect, and Andrew Painter. I mean, you can't do that. You're not a franchise crippler that only the Dodgers can get away with because,
Yeah, you're not going to move 2 top 5 prospects for a guy who's not that elite echelon of player. And that just goes to show who's working at Bleacher Report. And I don't know if it was posted for clickbait, I almost respect it more. If somebody genuinely thought that if someone was a self-proclaimed baseball guy and thought, look, I got this great trade, that's even sadder to me. I would rather it be clickbait.
It's 4 years of team control, which, I mean, it's nice, but I want more.
You know who's worth 2 top 5 prospects, and you said Jarren Duran is a very good baseball player. He's not in that stratosphere of guys who command 2 top 5 prospects. He's just not.
I think he's top 5. Like, kind of feels like Eduardo Tate straight up, maybe a little less than that.
Yeah,
I mean, then you could have the conversation. I still wouldn't do it, but I wouldn't.
Tate and
I wouldn't instantly hang up the phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what do you think about Tate and Bang?
And nope. I hear the name start to come out of your mouth. The phone is ending face down on the line. But
to your point, if the conversation went, all right, I'm looking for Tate, and I hear the word "end," not even Andrew, just Tate end, pass.
It is tricky with prospects though, and Duran is a proven bat, so it kind of takes that out, and he's on a team-friendly kind of deal. I wouldn't be against it, but the "and" makes it really hard. I agree.
Yeah. So in a world where that's probably not going to happen, the outfield bat market this year isn't nearly as good as it was last year. It felt like last deadline was the time to address it, or which all the fans are clamoring for. The offseason market for outfield bats was solid. I mean, Bellinger would have helped this team. Obviously, Kyle Tucker helps any team that he's on.
Kyle Tucker's too expensive, though. I mean, the return they got for him,
yeah,
it should have been more. With how he's hitting now,
the return that they actually got, I was on board with. I didn't think it was that ludicrous.
I agree.
I already outplayed it.
He smashed it, but he's not going to stay there. So that's a debate for another day because he's gone. I don't think he resigns in Chicago. You could clip this if I'm wrong, but he's heading somewhere to a bigger market because he's just absolutely incredible. But there was guys there, we talked about Rooker how many times before he signed his big deal. That would have been a nice right-handed bat to add to the outfield. It just feels like this team needs a splash or a spark, but I don't think it's coming. I think it's going to be another bullpen Estevez kind of deadline because that's what our priority should be. I don't think the order is going to change at all. You got to rely on your studs. JT's got to get back on track behind the plate. Well, not behind the plate, but at the dish. He's still been an incredible defender. That outfield just needs a little bit more pop.
Yeah, it needs some love for sure. And I don't think the answer is Cedric Mullins. We've been over that.
I agree.
I get what he was. It's just not technically what he is. I'm reading now Jeff Passan's article on ESPN. He kind of takes the approach that I think you and I both are expecting from the Phillies. It would take a splash to fix everything. He has the Phillies taking a pretty predictable approach and getting Pete Fairbanks from the Sox. or a reliever of that type, which I think it would be an underwhelming trade deadline again from Dombrowski. It feels very 2023 with, well, hopefully 2024 with, well, this might work. I would like to address that. If we're going to pick one need and leave the other holes there, I would like to address that need without a shadow of a doubt. And, just bringing one guy in feels much like Estevez did last year, where it was kind of a Band-Aid job, and it fell off in October.
Mm-hmm. Trade deadlines are tricky, man, because you have to overpay in sense of prospect value, but you never know if those prospects are going to turn into anything. I mentioned this last week. There's some trades where you look back on the returns for all-stars, and they're all-timers. You look at the return that Washington got when they traded Juan Soto to the Padres.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Gore's
going to be a stud. Already probably
looking
is.
Good. He pieced the Phillies on opening day. You have James Wood, who looks like an all-star. You have CJ Abrams, who's been spectacular. And there's still some other pieces left in that trade. And then there's trades where you hear about the other side where a guy gets sent over and the prospects turn into nothing. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Miguel Cabrera trade back in the day, the Marlins got next to nothing for him in total. And, we saw what happened with Miguel Cabrera in Detroit. He won a Triple Crown.
He was better than he was as a Marlin.
There's two sides to the coin here, where sure, do we want to bridge the gap? Sure, do we want to get younger? Yes. Sure, does the team want to get a little cheaper because it's quite expensive? Yes. But you still want to win, and you still want to put all these butts in the seats. And there's been no team basically better than the Phillies and putting butts in seats and having a dedicated fan base that shows up for literally every game, makes random Sunday night games against division rivals feel like a playoff atmosphere, makes a playoff atmosphere feel like college football or a soccer game overseas. It's just a different feel. And the front office needs to keep that feeling alive, the hope, but also try to transition to the next era, because we saw it with Ruben Amaro Jr. back in the day with the 08 team, where they kept them for too long. And then that window of just, I don't even know what adjective to use for the window of despair.
Yeah.
So it was the lull before we got Bryce, and it was just, no one was showing up. Everything was bad. There was very little spots of hope. Yeah, so it's difficult because you don't want that to happen.
You and I talk about it a lot, and I think Ruben Amaro is one of the great case studies in just the furthest extreme you can take it. We talk about it with the Sixers a lot, and we talk about it with this Phillies team too. If you win a championship in Philadelphia, you do kind of become immortalized. And whatever you do for the next few seasons doesn't so much matter because you were able to get a title. I think nobody's pushed that further to the brink than Ruben Amaro Jr. Because did that Phillies team win a title? Absolutely. Is it celebrated as one of everybody's favorite Phillies teams, whether you saw the 70s and 80s teams or not? Yes, it still holds up. But, man, it's always going to be worth it. But with that Phillies team, the answer might be just barely because of how far you set that franchise back from, God, those years, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, were just horrid baseball.
They were unwatchable.
Yeah. So he's a fun one where we say, look, just win a title and nobody cares. I still think that's true. Ruben Amaro, he's a terrible broadcaster. He's still looked at somewhat fondly as a GM because he did bring that title to Philadelphia. But he used every inch of that goodwill over those next couple of years.
Yeah, the 09 team did make it back, which kind of gave them more grace period. Of course, they lost to the Yankees.
Yeah, and then
slowly it got worse from there. The Ryan Howard, that's the one that lives with me. The Ryan Howard Achilles tear
changed the entire
to end that. What was against the Cardinals, or was it the Giants?
Yeah,
it was one of those two teams because all they did back then was win those two teams. It felt like an NLCS every year against them. But as he was, trying to make it to first base, as he got out of that batter's box, I knew the window was over. That's where it just slammed shut because he was never the same Utley was eventually traded, and then
J-Roll was traded.
yeah, he was traded
Victorino left. Hunter
everyone
Pence
just started
left.
leaving.
Jason Worth left. I mean,
All the Dodgers too, basically.
what's it called? Pence went to the Giants, had a really good career there. Victorino, I believe, went to Boston.
Yep.
Chase and Jimmy went to the Dodgers. Jason went to the Nats. I don't think.
Did he go back to the Nats?
Who?
I thought we got him from the Nationals. Did he go back?
Jason Worth went from the Phillies to the Nationals. That much I'm certain.
I think he went both ways.
He might have, but I know he finished out as a Nat.
No, he was from the Dodgers. Okay, I forget that. I thought he played for the Nationals, then went Philly, Washington again.
No.
That's on me. My Phillies lore is off. I posted my Immaculate Grid the one day, and everyone was calling me, they said
casual.
I get casual because I was like, I posted a bunch of random Phillies, and everyone's like, that grid's for rookies. I'm like, all right.
I'm gonna stop there.
Okay, bro. I didn't watch in those crazy years. They were some of the polls there were crazy. I'll have to go through it again or send you some. But some of the polls people.
Yeah, you got like Ben Revere patrolling right field and shit. Like those were some good old days.
There were greater polls than that.
Yeah.
In the comment section, I'm surprised.
Juan Uribe at one point was a Philly.
There's a lot of polls can be had, but yeah, those years just sure it was worth it. And then you look further in Philly history, and then you have the process, which has not been worth it at all.
Well, that's kind of the thing. It's like, but again, think about it. The process is miserable right now. If the Sixers win the championship next year, do we look back on the process as gloomily? No, it changes everything, but you got to win one.
I don't know, man.
I think it does. I think people forget immediately.
The process, most of the process players are gone. Like,
not the one that matters.
Not the one that matters.
If he delivers a title to this town, the process will have been a success.
I don't
net of this Joel.
I don't think just such a. I mean, if Giannis goes out west and he doesn't get traded to like a Cleveland or a Boston somehow, and they don't, pull a rabbit out of the hat and get him to one of those two teams, sure, I feel like it's possible. But the process it feels like so long ago that started. And of course, we still have the main guy here. But it just feels like if Kawhi never hit that shot, man.
I'm with you. But let me put it like this. Like, if, obviously you win in 08 and it's spectacular. If the Phillies were to win the World Series this year, and you can look back and have, the 08 and then and then it would be the 25 World Series. I wouldn't look at those years in the mill quite the same as I do right now, because you bankrupted it for 08 and you won a title, and then you might just run this team into the ground again for a title, but damn it, you got 2 titles.
That is true. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So there's 4 moments that stand out to me in Philadelphia sports history. I want to know which one hurts you the most.
Okay.
So on my mind right now, that obviously lives, rent free apparently. Mm-hmm. It's the Super Bowl pass interference by James Bradbury. It's the choke against the Diamondbacks.
Mm-hmm.
It is Kawhi's shot, and it is Alshon's drop in the divisional.
Yeah, against New Orleans.
Because I think that team was going back to back. I truly, honestly believe that team was going to go in, beat the Rams, and then beat New England again. So
I think in order, number one's easy. The Kawhi shot is the easy, undisputed number one for me, because it's the biggest what if, because that team was nuts, right? You got Jimmy, you got Ben, you got JJ, you got Tobias and Joel playing really good ball.
I think it's swap for me.
Not honestly. To mention, you still have TJ McConnell coming off you had some dudes on that team.
I totally agree. It would have been flip flop for me, but if the Eagles didn't get revenge, it probably would have been the PI one. But I think that's kind of moved down.
PI for me is number 5, and I say. Oh, there's 4, yeah. I say that because, look, you wanted him to get away with it. And you do get away with him from time to time. It was PI. Like, my heart didn't break because it was PI. In the moment, I hate that you call it. I think, in the Super Bowl, you let that moment happen. But he did do it. That's why it doesn't hurt me quite as bad. For me, would be the Alshon drop. Because that team was going. They were, I thought, more talented even than the year prior. Nick Foles could have done something that he's already etched in history, but something that would probably never be done ever again in the history of football. Instead of a backup quarterback come in mid-season twice and win 2 Super Bowls would have been absolutely unheard of for the rest of the time. And then the 2 Phillies ones, because it doesn't feel like anything was taken from, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, then the Phillies one, because the Diamondback series, did they choke it? Absolutely. Did I see it coming a mile away? For sure. Like, you saw the team start to peter off, and it was like,
that one felt inevitable. You didn't have the time. You had the time to process that one, where you didn't have the time to process Kawhi's shot because it happened 1, 2, 3.
Or the drop because Alshon didn't drop balls. Like, those 2 were shot. The other ones weren't.
I think I agree with your order. I mean, I might flip the PI and the Phillies, but that's about it. That's where I am. I think the top 2 are very agreeable. It's just I think both those top 2 teams are going all the way. I think you're absolutely correct with that one.
Even the PI, and I don't think you're nuts. I think I could be talked into a flip there too. But similarly, I look at the PI similarly as I do to the Phillies. You felt that coming too. That second half of the game, we were hanging on for dear life. That wasn't too heavy.
We'll never be thanked in Philly ever again.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if it was 2 heavyweights slugging it out, Jalen was dealing, the defense was doing its thing, and it felt like it was taken from us, then it would challenge number 2 for me. It's like, oh man, maybe. But I mean, we were on skates in the second half, and it just felt like, oh God, here it comes. Like, the shock factor of 1 and 2 was nuts.
I know this has been a Phillies episode. I don't think we got to address the Bryce Huff trade at all.
No, we'll wrap. We'll do 3 minutes on that. I don't want to go too much past 40, but I thought, and that we might not have completely agreed on it. I thought it was a steal by Howie, and I've seen social media tell me I'm wrong. I thought it was an anchor of a contract. Everybody knows you screwed up. I didn't think his value was even mid-level at that point, but to be able to get off of the contract, I think we're sitting on over $40 million in cap now freed up is because of that deal.
Yeah.
And get yet another 5th rounder back that how he's going to pair together to move. I love it.
I love the deal too, but I just don't want the Eagles fan base to be going crazy when Bryce Huff performs. Obviously, Bryce Huff is going to be worth more. I'm
pulling for him, dude. I want a 4th.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pulling for him just as a player as well, but he had more value to the 49ers than anyone else in the league. Robert Saleh is going to use him correctly. He used him correctly in New York. Now he's back in San Fran, and they needed that designated pass rusher. So I think it's a great fit, but I don't want fans to be like, oh man, we couldn't get that out of him when Vic Fangio has proven that he's gotten the most out of basically everyone that he's coached.
Yeah.
So I just want that distinction to be clear.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Him balling in San Francisco doesn't affect the value of this deal. I think, in my opinion, San Francisco valued him, like you said, higher than he is worth because they think they know what they can turn him into. They gave us more than anybody would have come close to because of the player that they think that he'll be when the season comes around. So it was the best deal possible for the Eagles. They got more value than the other 31 teams would have given them. And it might work out for San Francisco. Trades don't always have to be you got fleeced or I got fleeced. And I think this is going to be one of those.
I think it's a win-win. Like I said, Robert Saleh's already gotten the most out of Bryce Huff.
Yeah.
They needed that designated pass rusher. They drafted an edge rusher who's, stout against the run, and Michael Williams in the first round. So I think it'll work out. Obviously, the Eagles might have a little bit of a need on the edge now, but it's more so like a rotational guy. I think they need one more.
I think they might address it. Nolan Smith is apparently really impressed. Vic Fangio doesn't give out compliments very often. We've pretty much heard that, we're not going to see Nakobe Dean. I know he's not an edge, but, he was such a dynamic linebacker. And, you went out and got Uche. You got Ojulari. Hunt was playing pretty much purely on athleticism last year. He'll have a year in the scheme.
Campbell could play edge. It's there. I don't think it's going to happen especially with Nakobe Dean's injury, but Campbell might see some time at edge.
He could. I'm sure you saw the same press conference I saw where he's not even going to hit the field until August, and Fangio's number one focus is to get him ready to be, ready to go at linebacker.
Yeah.
So edge might come later in the season or whatever, but this team's going to be good enough at edge. You might like one extra piece, but they'll be all right.
Sort of like what DeJean's doing now, where he's playing outside corner in OTAs, and then he's moving around when it comes in a nickel.
Yeah, like I think he starts the season at nickel, but they want him to see some reps outside.
I think he'll see outside reps in base and then move inside when it's, 3 wide receiver sets. So
yeah,
looking forward to it.
Yep, but that's all for me. The room I'm in, as much as we were talking about how it's the studio prior, it is not ventilated, so I am cooking in here. So we're going to wrap this one up. But I'm Brandon. That's Ryan. This is the Passive Report. We'll see you next Thursday.